Hey folks, everything new under the sun. Here's my prediction as to whether there will be an electromagnetic pulse used in the next 10 years. I think we're moving towards war. I think we move towards World War III. I think World War III occurs before the Antichrist or the world leader comes into power. And when the world is at its worst, there may have been nuclear weapons used. The economy has collapsed. The stock market has tanked because of the use of nuclear weapons. And famine and chaos and violence is rampant throughout the world. That is the case and the situation and the scenario when the Antichrist can come to power, when we are all desperate and we have no choice but to accept the mark. But will there be an electromagnetic pulse which kicks us into a time 150, 200 years ago where there was no electricity, where there are no cell phones or computers? I don't think so. I suggest to you that there may be EMP used, but not to the manner where it would fry every single piece of electronics that you have in your house. Now, the Bible does seem to speak of cases kind of for and against this idea. In Revelation chapter 13, in the red section there, this is speaking about the mark of the beast. And he causeth all, both great, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell save he that has the mark. Now, that's a technology statement, as Chuck Missler would say. You're going to get something in your right hand. So it says in, mark in, and I take it at its word. I take it literally in. So that would point to maybe a microchip, because tattoos are on your hand. It also says in your foreheads. Again, this is a King James version. In your right hand or in your forehead. And these days, as we talk about digital currency, CBDC, that would indicate that this is a digital electronic system. Now, this verse right here, again, would indicate that a global EMP has not been used. Because if one was, and all the electronics around the world were completely fried, then the infrastructure, the civilian infrastructure would be there. Maybe the military has stuff that works, but the civilian infrastructure to scan, to manufacture, to disseminate, to install, etc., and program these things would not be there. Unless maybe a localized EMP was used, and maybe the West is hit by a localized EMP. But Ezekiel 38 and 39 seem to describe a situation where there were, where they're having to resort to horses and horsemen. Now, is that just old-fashioned language because they couldn't describe tanks or motorcycles or airplanes or that sort of thing? I don't know about that. I take it more literal than that, and I take it literal at this time. And this assumes that the mark of the beast happens at the same time or around the same time as Ezekiel 38 and 39. Ezekiel 38 says, verse 4, And I will turn thee back, and put hooks in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company, and bucklers with shields, all of them handling swords. So I take that at face value. I take it to suggest that there's something has happened at that time, whenever this is, either at the end of the millennium or at the end of the 6,000 years of man, and at the end of the millennium, the idea of dual fulfillment. And that at that point in time, all they have left is horses. Maybe there's no fuel for the tanks and such, which use computer chips to drive, etc. Maybe there's no energy for them, or maybe an electromagnetic pulse has been used. I suggest this. I suggest there is likely the use of a more localized electromagnetic pulse, which triggers a cascading failure of the grid. Now, if Russia or China wanted to attack the United States, Canada, the Western powers, they would explode, maybe by way of a balloon, 50, 60,000 feet in the air, just like that Chinese balloon, which has now been confirmed, at least by mainstream media and apparently Pentagon, to have antennas for receiving information. That would be a great way to explode a nuclear device, which would cause an electromagnetic pulse to go through the grid. And in North America, the grid is all attached, and there would be, if it energized the grid, then there would be a cascading failure across the grid, and anything connected to that would be destroyed. So if your cell phone was plugged into the wall being charged, it would be destroyed because it's an endpoint of the grid if it was powerful enough. But if your phone was not plugged in, that energy may not be enough to take that out. So they could do a cascading failure, which would take out all the maybe the cell phone infrastructure, but you would still have your laptops and your cell phones and maybe ATMs and such, but the infrastructure for those to communicate would not be there. So it would be less of a complete destruction of all technological equipment or tools, and more of a kind of a temporary thing, taking out infrastructure, at least for a while, until they could replace some of those, blown capacitors, blown transistors, etc., and do some minor repair. Similar in the Middle East, you would think that there would be a retaliatory response to that by, the mutually assured destruction idea. And if the United States was taken out with an EMP, then the submarines and Minuteman missiles, etc., would be immediately launched on, Russia, China, the Middle East, wherever they thought they came from, and it would do similar destruction there. So do we mutually take out each other's main power grids, and energy infrastructure to where we are riding around on horses? But we still have some sort of infrastructure left over when the Antichrist comes to deploy a Mark of the Beast system, and maybe after a couple of months of repair. So I don't think it's something that sets us back into 150 into the 1800s or something like that, where nobody has no electricity. People will have EcoFlow deltas and battery backup systems and solar panels, which may still work and probably will still work because it would take a lot of EMPs to wipe out all that across North America. But there would be some sort of countrywide outage, and that's really the outage that you need to be concerned about, because when people can't communicate, they will start going crazy, they will get violent, they will get desperate. So anyways, that's my prediction. I think an EMP could be used, but we won't be thrust into the 1800s without any sort of electronics, because again, the Antichrist has to come, pick up the pieces, deploy some sort of digital ID in your right hand or forehead, whatever that is, and there must be some sort of technological infrastructure in place at that time. So again, if these are in proximity and happening close to one another, then I don't think the EMP would be complete and total. And that goes into your preparations. That goes into your decision making as to whether you get, a Jackery or solar power system. Because my thinking is that it's unlikely that it will take those things out, especially where I am. Being far away from the major centers, I don't think that would occur, although the whole cascading grid failure thing could very well occur. And so you need some technology that may not get affected to deal with the main piece of technology, the grid, that is taken out during that sort of attack. So a couple of verses to ponder. Let me know what you think about these. Do you take them literally? Do you take Ezekiel 38 and 39 literally when they're riding horses or armies, or do you think that refers to tanks and other mechanized infantry? And when you speak of Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, the mark in your right hand or forehead, do you believe that to be a tattoo? Or is that a microchip, an implant, something digital, technology-based? Let me know in the comments, and I'll certainly be watching them. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.